Welcome to the Talkin Smash Podcast with JOOLA. I am your host, Matt Hetherington. I'm joined today by Ryan Willard. Yeah, that's the face that we're looking for. He is a MC and host extraordinaire, one of my favorite people to commentate with, and has been involved in table tennis for a long time now, all the way from, recreational table tennis in the beginning through to the highest levels as a incredibly entertaining person and somebody who can really grab a crowd and get them excited about the sport. So great to have you with us, Ryan. We're going to be talking about newcoming to table tennis, what people can expect when they're seeing the sport at the professional level for the first time. And I'm glad to have you as my first guest on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Matt. It is an absolute honor to be your first guest. I hope to make all of the mistakes that you will learn from in the future, as I do in all parts of my life.
I mean, I'm probably going to make a fair number of mistakes on my side as well, so things will balance out.
It happens. But bottom line is, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a big fan of yourself. I'm a big fan of JOOLA. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of table tennis. So getting to talk about it on a podcast is exactly where I want to be. So thank you for having me.
So obviously you're, a lot of table tennis players, especially outside the US, might not know who you are. So you've obviously done a lot of commentary here in the US and a lot of event hosting for JOOLA, for USATT, for ITTF as well. But how did you first become involved in table tennis?
Well, the first time I ever played was at my friend's house, Craig Kirkman, in Portland, Oregon, when I was like 6 years old. But then I didn't really play a lot all through growing up. I only played a couple times when I was a kid. So when I was living here in New York City, I got an invitation one night from a friend who was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Susan Sarandon's ping pong club?" And I was like, "What? Susan Sarandon has a ping pong club? There's a clubs with ping pong in it?" And they're like, "Yeah, come by." And I went to Spin New York for the very first time when it just opened, and it was insane. It, for me, was so exciting to see this game that I'd played as a kid but hadn't played in so long, but loved playing as a kid. And so I started playing there. And I became a member of Spin, enjoyed it very much. And then I became friends with Susan and Jonathan and Frank, and the owners of Spin. And they came to a live show that I did for my theater company that I was emceeing. And not long after, they asked me to host the Dirty Dozen, which is their Friday night underground tournament at the club. And so if you are not familiar with this, the Dirty Dozen was essentially up to 12 players who would compete in a single elimination tournament at like 9 o'clock at night in this basement club, low ceilings, low light, DJ blasting music, drunk patrons everywhere, no barriers, 1-star balls. Like, this was as down and dirty as table tennis got. And I loved it. I fell in love with it because it was like, there was so much emotion, so much drama, and such a fast-paced sport. And so when I would host, I was just seriously a fan, just watching from the front row and commentating and talking about it. But I was able to be kind of the bridge between the audience who was watching it for the first time. And so I would feel their energy and the oohs and ahs and the jaws dropping to the floor from these people seeing professional players playing up close and personal when they'd never had seen anything like that live. So for me, Spin was like my defining moment of entering the table tennis world and how I really fell in love with it. And obviously, not having a table tennis background, I was very open to learning. And I was really fortunate that Wally Green, who was my co-host, at first he hated me because he thought I was taking his job. But then Wally and I connected one time on a trip when we were opening Spin Toronto. And I basically said, like, "Look, Wally, I don't know anything about table tennis. You're the pro. You're the expert. But I know about hosting. Like, that's where I'm a professional. I was on Nickelodeon. I do this stuff all the time. This is like my job. And I was like, so if you teach me table tennis stuff, I'll teach you hosting stuff." And he was like, okay.
It seems like a pretty good trade, yeah.
It was a great trade. And so then Spin was just like nirvana for me. Like, every Friday night I would show up. I would just get to hang out with Wally, talk about table tennis, watch these amazing players. There was dance contests, celebrities, crowd games, all sorts of things that were just wildly different than I'd ever and probably will ever experience table tennis again.
Yeah, I mean, I actually played the Dirty Dozen one time. And so for me, I mean, I played table tennis for a long time already before I came to the US. And it was still a crazy, crazy new experience for me because you have professional table tennis players in like the most social environment ever. It was just a completely wild time. But I think that Spin's a great hub for kind of connecting those two worlds because they really are separate worlds. The world of recreational table tennis and the world of professional table tennis are so far apart from each other. It's wild. And you've kind of gravitated from one to the other. So what was your experience like when you actually went from Spin and became introduced to what people on the table tennis side will consider real table tennis?
So I, through Spin, had done a ton of other table tennis events outside of Spin. So I felt very, very confident in my understanding of table tennis and what the sport was. But it wasn't until I did a charity event for Big Brothers Big Sisters of New York City that I met Tom Nugent, and he saw what I was doing. And Tom, being from JOOLA, was like, "I do this tournament. You should come. I think we could use you." And I was like, "All right, sure." And he invited me to the North American Teams Championships. So I was wildly excited and also actually a little nervous because like I knew I was stepping into a level that I hadn't experienced yet, but it felt very natural to me. And I was invited. So I was really excited to go. And when I walked in to that arena for the first time and saw the 115 tables sprawled out, I was just in awe. Like it quickly made me realize that I knew nothing about table tennis, that there was this whole entire world and scene that I was walking into for the first time now. And so when I did that first event, I was really trying to bring the energy that I had at Spin, but also being very respectful of the sport because I was the newcomer. And it was wild because
to the traditionalists of the
exactly
of the game.
And those traditionalists, to be honest, after that first championship, after the finals, I had like 10 different people come up to me and all say something wildly similar, which was, "You are not welcome here. You are not supposed to get people excited. There can't be clapping. No one wants you here." And I was like, I'm pretty sure they do want me here because they invited me here. The people that organized the tournament, like, "No, you're ruining the sport. You're ruining it." And, I was definitely a little taken aback. But then I had 3 times as many people come up to me afterwards and say, "Thank you for coming. I loved what you did. We need that energy in here." It feels like a library sometimes in these tournaments that we love that you were getting the crowd excited. You were getting people to cheer for different people. And so I luckily got asked back. And after that, of doing the North American Teams Championships for a while, ended up getting to meet a guy named Gordon Kay, who was the CEO of USA Table Tennis at the time. And he saw what I did at a charity event as well and had heard about me and basically invited me to host the national championships. And so that's how I started with USA TT and really diving into the sport. And
then, of course, you ended up with me.
That was the game change, bro.
That's where things really started going downhill.
I would say the opposite. Because for me, when I was with USATT in the beginning, it was understaffed, right? In terms of like the aspirations they had, the things they were doing, it was just really, it was tough. And when you came along, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember telling you like, "No, you're my boss." And you're like, "I'm not your boss." And I was like,
you
no.
Still tell me that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was like, "Look, I see what you're doing. I am not doing your job, but I'm here to support whatever it is that you're doing." And so like, I know I have my separate lane of live emceeing, but like I need someone who's overseeing me who can help me be better. And anything you need, I want to help you be better. So tell me what you want to do because I love this sport so much. I just want to make these events as insanely cool as they possibly can be.
This is actually the reason why I started a podcast, because that's your area of expertise. So now we're balancing out the equation. You're going to help me make this a great podcast.
Happy to. I'll take the executive producer credit all day. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll be in the rolling credits at the end. So funnily enough, you played in a real tournament as well. So, this is something that not many people know. And this is one of the stories that it doesn't matter how many times I hear it, it will never get old for me. But you've actually played in a table tennis tournament. And a lot of people who come into the game of table tennis, they kind of think that they're a pro at the game already. And they get humbled very quickly. So it would be great if you could tell the people watching this podcast what happened when you played in that table tennis tournament. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, Matt. Thank you for setting me up for failure on your podcast instantly by telling this story. So I'd been to the North American Teams Championships for a number of years, and I just had the bug. I wanted to play, and it's so bad. And a friend of mine whose son was a player, his name was David Rockwell. David said, "Yo, we should play next year." And I was like, "Yeah, let's play next year." And he called me up the next year and said, "All right, so we're going to play, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're going to play." And so I went to like the FIT tournament to get my rating to qualify and just to be able to play in the team's championships. And I did. David and I were on a team together, and they just assigned us a random person to be our third teammate. And so we meet this team. Our team was Team Will Rock. And basically, I was used to being at table 1. That's where I hang out. That's where I know the most people. That's where I do commentary. That's where I MC. Yeah. My first match was on table 116. So I'm walking to the literal opposite side of the arena with my 2 teammates. And I'm like, "Yeah, guys, if anyone makes a kid cry, the other 2 teammates have to buy them a beer." And they're like, "Yeah, that's a great call." And we're laughing about that. I'm in like my glasses and a hat, and I didn't think anyone knew anything about me. So I was just wanted to be there to play. And I get to my table, and the dad, who is the coach of like these 5 kids, sees me and goes, excuse me. Are you, ladies and gentlemen? And I was like, yeah, that's me. He was like, You're Ryan. I was like, yeah, I'm Ryan. He was like, "Can we take a picture with you?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, of course. Let's take pictures." I take pictures with the whole group. He made me take pictures with each of the kids. And, I'm like talking to them. I'm all like, I'm being, friendly me. And then I step onto the court, and the first kid I play smoked him in the first game. I felt so good. I like destroyed this kid. I was like, my teammates like, "Yeah." And then the kid just bursts out into tears after the first game, just bawling. And I'm like, suddenly I'm eating my own words. I felt so terrible. And my teammates were giving me "You get a beer sign." Yeah. And I was like, "I don't want a beer, man." Like, "Oh, dude." So I took it easy on the kid in the second game. Right. And he takes the second game, and I'm like, okay, that's fair. He's not crying anymore. And then the third game comes, and the kid smoked me. And I was like, whoa, wait. And I tried. I was just trying my absolute hardest, and he just crushed me. Fourth game comes, destroyed me. I think I lost like 11-3. And the kid is laughing his way off the table. And I was just so frustrated and embarrassed. That whole entire tournament, I was losing to children. Not only just children, the seniors. Like, no one my age was playing me. They were in different divisions. There's only seniors and children that I was playing against at the low level rating that I was at. And basically I've seen that kid so many other times in tournaments afterwards, and he just looks at me and he like laughs. Like, so I don't even know who this kid is, but I will find him one day.
He knows you, yeah.
Apparently, I think he's an adult now. So yeah, that was my that was the pride of my table tennis career.
And you haven't really played. I mean, that was career ending as well. Right? I don't recall you having played any table tennis tournaments since, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you for clarifying, Matt. That was a career-ending tournament, I guess you could say. I recently played at the 808 Ping Pong Club in Maui in a unsanctioned tournament.
Is that more your pace?
It was. And it was a super friendly tournament. I was there hosting a ping pong wedding, which was insane. Shout outs to Christine and Felipe. But basically we did a tournament there at this awesome club that this guy Noah runs. And I made the mistake of in the first round, where you're basically getting your matches to see what division you're in. Yes. I made the mistake of trying my hardest in that part. And I was just was crushing it. I felt so good. I was like, yo, this is my tournament right now. And then I remembered, oh God, this is the qualifying round. I just won all these matches. It's going to put me in the higher division. And I should have been in division C or D. And I was in division B, right? I was one step below the best players. And I got destroyed, destroyed. I think I won one game in my 4 matches. I just got spanked by pretty much all senior players. They were all in their 50s and up. It was so frustrating. So yeah, that was a career-ending tournament, but I will still show up to get beaten because I love the sport that much.
I would actually like to show up live. So the next time you're intending to play a tournament, because I haven't seen this, I want to witness this in person. So next time you're planning on playing a tournament, just hit me up and let me know.
You're gonna commentate behind me?
Yeah, I could do that.
Or you could coach me. Maybe you can help me win a tournament, Matt. How about that?
Let's take baby steps.
What? Okay.
I've never even seen you play.
Don't worry about that. You don't want to see me play in a tournament. That's the point. No one wants to see me play in a tournament.
No, I do. I think people do now. They want to know. They want to see.
Do you think I should enter a tournament?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, tell me a tournament you want me to enter that you'll be there. I'll play in it.
I'll do MDTDC. It's next door. You can come down here. That way I don't have to go anywhere. The odds of me showing up are much better.
Cool. Book my flights. Find me a place to stay. I'll be there. I'm in.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's such a great story. Okay. Let's get back on track. So we're talking about you coming to table tennis. This is a big problem. And I talked a little bit about how there are 2 different, very, very different circles of people involved in the sport. There's recreational people and there's people who consider themselves real table tennis players. Some people would say that ping pong players and table tennis players, that whole argument we're not even going to get into. But there is a big gap and there's a bridge missing. I think you'd agree with me. There's a bridge missing between those 2 groups. Now, you obviously have learned a lot about table tennis over, I don't even know how many years it's been now. Probably
13.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was less than that's even more than I thought. What do you think table tennis has? What are the assets that table tennis has? What are the cool things about real table tennis that are maybe not being missed out on promoting? Maybe they're not being focused on enough. Why do you think people have not felt any desire or had any exposure to real professional table tennis?
I think the reason why most people haven't seen professional table tennis is because there's not a lot of bridges into the live experience. There's not a lot of opportunities to see it live. It's you can hear a band on the radio, but the way that the A&R people find bands is that they have to see them live. And when they see them live, they can tell if they really respond to it. And I think every person I've ever shown table tennis to live falls in love with it and is into it and has a whole different respect for it. So I think it's often hard to find live table tennis matches at high levels to watch, which is why I think Spin was really, really cool bridge. I think one of the assets that table tennis has that is underplayed because of what you just said is that it's a sport that everybody knows, that everyone has played at some point. And that's the sport of ping pong. And people don't like that word often. And they're like, we're not playing ping pong. And it's right. You're not. Ping pong is a basement sport, but the higher levels of table tennis, it's elite. right? And what people don't want to recognize is that ping pong and table tennis are the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. But the only difference is that ping pong is what the common people are playing. And so like, I think the biggest asset table tennis has is that everyone loves this game. They just are, they don't feel like they have a way into the high level of the sport. And there's not necessarily opportunities to watch it live. And you can watch things online and see live streams and YouTube videos, and those are also cool. But when you see it live and you really get to see how fast that ball moves and how intense the matches are, that is what always changes it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things that I think, like, one of the difficulties that I've thought about a lot is that table tennis is too complex. And this is one of, I made a tweet about this recently. And what I said was that the biggest kind of curse to table tennis is that it is an unbelievably complex sport, which to an outsider looks very simple. So a lot of people assume that table tennis is this very simple game. You don't move your feet. Okay. You can't see the spin on the ball. People don't know how hard it is to control. They just assume it's, you hit the ball back and forth, you play at a table, you don't have to move. So I think that's a huge, I think the education part of it, helping people understand what is really going on, what is happening, all the different forces on a ball, the spin, how hard it is to control. I think that's why most people who play competitively, that's kind of the base of people who spectate the sport. People who really understand what is going on helps them appreciate it. I think that's another bridge. Speaking of bridges, so you were at Spin for quite a while. You've done a lot of table tennis charity events. You're doing Big Brothers Big Sisters. You also were doing the emceeing for Top Spin, which was one of my favorite events.
The best.
One of the best events in basically central Manhattan. Do you feel like table tennis clubs, specific table tennis clubs, have you been to many table tennis clubs? I know New York, they don't really have as many. Do you feel like they're too intimidating to people? Do you think they lack that kind of welcoming warmth to new people and have too much elitism in a lot of table tennis clubs? Because I feel like that's a big block. If you look at a sport like pickleball, which obviously Joola's getting into a lot now, it's very open to new people. Table tennis, I feel it can be quite cold. Like if a new person comes into a club, no high level player wants to play with someone who's never held a racket before. I don't know. Have you been to many table tennis clubs to play?
I've been to a small handful of table tennis clubs. I've benefited from knowing people at said clubs, so I think I had a different experience, right? But even then, it's hard to find the kind of welcome that I think someone would need to really want to dig into the sport. Like if a random person went to a gym and just walked into a gym and it was like, all right, don't you want to get buff? Most people would be intimidated, not really know what to do. No one's necessarily going to help them. They might have to hire a trainer to really get it, but it will take a while before they can really understand what's going on. So table tennis clubs, I do think there's a barrier, right? Because there's a certain level of intensity. And when people are at a table tennis club, they are there to train. They're there to train. And that is like...
Or to coach.
Yeah.
Which is $70 an hour, maybe.
And so I think a random person walking in just has no understanding. All they see is ping pong. I'm like, oh yeah, I've done this. This is it. But there's not necessarily, like you were saying, a bridge into the professional side. It's you can hire a coach, but that seems like a pretty big jump off, right? If like that's a barrier. They're like, all right, if I really want to improve, I got to pay this amount of money. How many times? I got to get all this equipment. I got to do all these things. There's not always a person in the club that can connect with each individual who walks in and bring them and welcome them into the sport. And I've been very fortunate that I've had different times that people have done that to me. Like when I was at 808 Ping Pong Club in Maui, Noah and all of his like patrons and club members, so welcoming to me. And I'm the person who's the worst player there. Right. But like they just took the time to play with me, and he made sure I was playing with different people. That type of vibe is like the exact vibe that I hope all table tennis clubs could be like, but that's not usually the case. People just have their heads down. They just want to train and they want to do their thing, and then they want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting reference point. In pickleball, they have some older members of the community who act as ambassadors for promoting the sport, and they're known as pickleball ambassadors. You know, sometimes they get discounts from pickleball companies for being ambassadors, and they have that title, and their responsibility is basically to welcome people into the game and encourage more people to play. I feel like something like that, you know, if you could have these kind of titles or positions in table tennis, would make a huge difference. Because, you know, sometimes you just need somebody to teach you some basics so you can get going when you walk through the door. And, you know, stepping into a table tennis club for the first time and saying, I'm going to take a lesson with this person who played 2 Olympic Games before. Maybe that's diving in the deep end for some people when they just want to get their feet wet.
100%, man. And like, I'm a big fan of personal connection. And someone's a lot more likely if they do connect with another human that can walk them through. It's not judging them. That's just going to show them a good time and help them learn about it. And you can take them so far, and then it's up to them to do it themselves. But like those ambassadors, those are the reasons why I've made it as far as I have in table tennis. Like I can clearly remember the people who have gone out of their way to help me learn and help me feel comfortable in the sport. And if it wasn't, I don't think I would have stayed. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have had a chance. But you were one of those people. Wally Green was another one of those people. Barry was another one that when I walked into that first FIT tournament, he literally just singled me out and said, hey, you don't have a membership, do you? And I was like, no, I don't. And he talked me through everything, talked me through how to select what events I wanted to play, and was so nice and accommodating and made me feel like, oh, okay, I belong here. And I didn't feel like I belonged there. I knew I didn't belong there, but he made me feel like that. And so Barry was that ambassador for me in my first professional tournament, but I don't know if everybody gets that same type of welcome. You know what I mean? So I've been very fortunate to have people who have gone out of their way to help me learn and enjoy table tennis to the extent that I have.
Yeah, obviously for me, Barry was a really big mentor, and I still remember and see when I go back to New Zealand, the people who taught me how to hit a forehand and how to serve. Like I still remember these people and keep in touch with them. And I think we need more people like that in the sport, and giving them a title or some kind of recognition, and having a network of people around the country or around the world that bring people into the sport is something that I think is missing.
Can I throw another one out there of the people that ushered me in? This guy named Sam Huang at Spin.
Oh, I know Sam. Yeah.
So like Sam was the first person that ever gave me a lesson. And it was because he would hit with me when I would show up, and he'd be like, yeah, let's play. And then he offered to give me a lesson. I went to his office. I want to say he was a postal worker, and they had a table at their office. So I went to like an actual post office, and he trained me, and we played for like an hour. And then he just
But they had a table in the post office.
There was, yeah.
That's wild.
And Sam gave me a paddle. Just gave it to me. Didn't sell it to me. Gave me a great paddle. And you know what I mean? Like, you're just like, no, you should have this. And this was before I even was hosting. So like someone like Sam,
the beginning meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. Like someone like Sam was like genuinely one of the reasons I just kept playing, because his generosity of his time, he wasn't doing it to try and make $1 off me. He was doing it just because like he saw that I loved it. And so like ambassadors like that, man, they make all the difference. Sam Huang, I love you to this day, man.
So going to the opposite end of the scale from first starting out, in 2021, you hosted the World Table Tennis Championships in Houston I mean, from an MC perspective, that's basically the pinnacle in the world of table tennis. And I was so excited for you to experience it, because I felt like your progression of your career and involvement in table tennis had really built up towards it. How eye-opening was it for you? You'd seen already the best players in the US, and you'd seen some players from overseas, but this was like exposure to the absolute best players in the world and dozens upon dozens of them. How was the overall experience for you? And I mean, do you think all people should be exposed to that? Like, is that what people need to see a World Championships?
The World Table Tennis Championships was hands down the best table tennis experience I've ever had. It was mind-blowing to me. And this is someone who'd been in the sport for so long. It's something that I thought I could do from day one, where I was like, of course I could host the World Championships. And then as I progressed in the sport, I realized that it was an actual ladder to climb. So to get that opportunity to do that for me was truly, like you said, the pinnacle of my table tennis career. And the production value alone of what they were executing, and how it looked and felt, the size of the arena, and just everything was just so grand and perfect. It was exactly as I hoped and imagined it would be. And then when the players started playing, dear Lord, I thought I knew table tennis. And every time that I thought that I knew table tennis, I would get kicked in the butt and reminded that I knew nothing, and that I had to sit there and watch and be a fan. And for me, this was just a parade of the best players that I could ever watch. And it was, honestly, it was very intense. I think it was like 8 days I emceed, and they were 12+ hour days minimum, 12 to 15 sometimes. And so it was like an actual marathon for me, for my energy and my voice. But there was this moment where I want to say it was like right before the weekend, before things started really ramping up. We're like 5 days in, and I was beat, and I didn't feel like I had the energy I needed. And there was this moment where I'm sitting there and I'm holding the microphone in my hand, and I was watching Hugo Calderano play, and seeing his passion and intensity just struck my soul, where suddenly it hit me, where I was like, you are at the World Table Tennis Championships right now. You are getting to watch the best players in the world. You are literally sitting closer than anybody else in the world gets to sit in this match, and you have a microphone, and you can say and do whatever you want as long as you get the crowd excited. And I was just like, oh my God, yes. And from then on, it was like absolute nirvana. The next 3 days, I was just on autopilot, because I didn't even think about anything else other than like, how lucky am I to be here? How excited am I to be here? And it just resonated through my body. And it's something that I know anybody who could come to an event of that scale would leave a table tennis fan. It was impossible not to be in love with the sport, watching that level of people, feeling the crowd roaring after every single point. It was exactly what I think table tennis should be seen as.
Yeah. I was really fortunate enough to go to 3. And they are really just the pinnacle level. Obviously I didn't go to an Olympic Games, which is a whole other kettle of fish, but if we could have events like that around the US on a regular basis, then maybe that's the bridge, one of the bridges that would help things start moving.
I would absolutely love that. I would attend as a fan. Even if they didn't want me to host it, I would show up just to watch.
All right. We're going to do a nice little segment here, a little feature. It's called the Call Out, Ryan.
Oh, wow.
And basically, I think you probably have an idea of what's going down here. Basically, you're going to pick anybody. It doesn't have to be a table tennis player. It could be someone you know. It could be someone you've never met. You need to pick somebody out and challenge them to a table tennis match, and stare with your soul and intent down the barrel of your camera and call them out for a challenge.
All right, here's my call out, Matt. The person that I would like to play is that child that I played in my North American Teams Championships, who I beat in the first game and then cried like the child that he was, and then went on to beat me again, and again, and then won the match 3-1. You know who you are. I don't even know what your name is. I know you were Chinese simply because your dad was yelling at you in Chinese. Once I get you back on that court, even if you're an adult, I'm going to show you who's boss. Now that I say that out loud, I realize you are probably much, 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 much higher rating than you were back then, and I've only gotten worse. But I still want to play you, human, whoever you are. Bring it. Find me online. At RyWillFilm on Instagram. We'll set up the match. Matt will sit there and laugh at me. You can come and play. Let's do this.
I'm actually now very invested in finding out who this player was. I mean, surely we can find the results, surely. It was JOOLA Teams, so I can find the results file. John Willard
gosh. Now I'm eating my words. I don't know if that's a good call out. I don't know if I want to play them.
Now I can kill two birds with one stone, because I can get this person to come to a tournament and make sure that you play them in the tournament. So I can not only watch you play a tournament, but we could video this. This is a good clip to put on social, and we can find this table tennis player and make this happen.
I'm regretting being on this podcast
and maybe
right now.
Well, that's what happens when you're the first guest. There's no framework of rules or but it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the first podcast. There's nobody that I would rather have as my first guest. And I think your perspective of this sport is so unique, having been through both of those bubbles of social table tennis and bridged all the way through. And we've been working together for a long time. And I, of course, will be back for more podcasts with you to tap into your opinions on table tennis, ping pong, the atmosphere, and your perspectives as somebody who's at these events and is not necessarily playing, and now does enjoy all of his time around table one. So, Ray, thanks for being on the podcast with me.
Thank you for having me. Anytime you want me back, I'll be here, my friend.